So let's talk about yesterday's games. First, I want to say more series is ended. Finally, the OKC and Pelican series ended. Honestly, I think we all expected that. It was a bloodbath from the beginning, and I don't think anyone really thought that the Pelicans were gonna win anything. The first game was their like game that was gonna determine their confidence going into the series. But after OKC figured it out and they won that first game, they never really looked back, and it just became a point of how much are you going to allow these young dudes to get up on you, shoot threes, make their shots, and play their style without you having to guard back. And in the end, obviously, they let them do that. They let the Thunder play their style. They let Shea cook. They let all the guys do their own thing. And even in this last game, the OKC guys had terrible games, most of them. But the biggest thing for them was the fact that because, in the same way that OKC had terrible games, the Pelicans also had pretty terrible games at the same time. I would say that Brandon Ingram had probably the most disappointing series out of anyone in this group. He was expected to be the star who stepped up after Zion got injured, and even though his team did win the play-in and they did look good, he averaged 14 points for the series on terrible shooting, 25% from three and 35% from the field, with a steal and a block. He played like trash. No one really, expected him to be this bad, but he was, and in the end, it cost him the series. It cost him probably some respect, and the Pelicans had basically to try to win against OKC without Brandon Ingram, and they were pretty close this game. In New Orleans, the best player consistently in the series were CJ McCollum and Jonas Valanciunas. But really, this series just came down to, are you letting them control the pace or are you controlling the pace? And in the end, the Thunder controlled the pace. In this Boston versus Heat game, Jesus Christ. And I'm very mad at this because I'm a Heat fan. And I'll be clear about my bias. But Jesus Christ, how do we let Derek White score 38 points on us? How do we let him hit 8 threes? And Derek White is a phenomenal player, but he scored 38. And then Tatum scored 20. Kristaps got injured in the middle of the game. And everyone else played like trash. And we still lost by 14. Like, Derek White is a great player. But if you ever told me that he was going to score 38 in a playoff game against my team, which is game planning for dudes like him not to go off, I would tell you that you're a liar. For the Heat, Tyler Hero and Bam are trying to do absolutely everything with Jimmy and Terry Rozier out. But with Kristaps getting injured, with the way that the Celtics played this game, I'm just surprised that they were able to have, and I feel like the biggest problem with the Heat is just the way that they lack the substantial amount of talent. Letting Derek White score 38, I think it's more of a product of the fact that the Boston has too many good players on their team to really cover everybody. Covering Tatum, Brown, Derek White, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, and Al Horford, trying to cover them all simultaneously or always having somebody on the court which could actually affect the game in a real way. Even Peyton Pritchard with the way that he shoots the ball, Sam Hauser or Luke Cornett, all of those guys actually play a pretty big role, and they all really play very well. So I think with the Heat, they have great defense, they have great schemes, and they have a great coach. But they are so undermanned that this shows why, having a good roster is important for the playoffs. I feel like even if they would have just a decent enough player who could carry them on the offensive end, so their guys could stick to defense, would make it so that the Heat would actually have a chance. Because if I'm being 1,000% honest, the fact that they won a game in this series and the fact that their blowouts haven't been that crazy really shows me that the Heat probably could have done something scary in this series if they would have just had their team completely healthy. but they didn't, and that's just what we have to deal with, especially, me as a Heat fan. But yeah, for the Nuggets Lakers, the Nuggets Lakers was a great series. It came to an end yesterday as Jamal Murray just went God mode in the fourth quarter again and absolutely smoked the Lakers, hitting a floater to win the game. I believe that LeBron James is the highlight of this series as he has just been the best player, doing absolutely everything. He dropped almost a triple double yesterday, and in my opinion, I just feel like it is so baffling to me how a player can play so amazingly, so consistently, but get no help from his roster. And I believe that the biggest problem is coaching. LeBron played great, and LeBron showed why being in this situation is bigger than basketball and is bigger than him. Him scoring 31 yesterday, I think it was, him scoring 30, getting consistently some of the best statistics, and putting himself in a position where he can be the player to get this team into the next round. It really worked. Like, for every single halftime in this series, they were winning by halftime. Every single game they were winning by halftime. But the problem is that, as I said, this Lakers team has a problem with fourth quarter execution, with third quarter execution. They allow too many shots, too many easy shots, and the biggest issue with them is that they don't put in the work consistently, which makes them such a great team. Like last year, they got to the Western Conference Finals, and yes, they lost against Denver, so getting them out of the playoffs is a big thing in the first round, especially because they can't now face any other teams, and they have to go home. So there's a lot of teams which are going to benefit from LeBron not being able to play. And with that being said, now that we see this, time is ticking for Bron. Like, yes, his playoff statistics are getting better. He's doing great. But I feel like, is it the time to move from one team to the other? Is it the time to really put your foot down and say, hey, I need to win games. There's no way I can be carrying this team like this and not be winning anything? Or is it time for him to say, I'm just going to go wherever Bronny is and take the competitiveness away from my legacy and just not focus on winning a ring and focus on being a dad? We don't know, but these are the big questions which are coming up now. For Nikola Jokic and the Lakers, now the playoffs actually changes a lot. Now you don't have a team which you know that you can beat anymore. You actually have a team which it's not certain that you are much better than, the OKC Thunder. All of these teams, even though you've beat them out, it's like you've never really had meaningful games against them. With the Lakers, you kind of knew already that you guys were cooked. And for that game of the Lakers versus the Nuggets, I do think that was the stamp that is now going to get Darvin Ham fired. Darvin Ham, obviously the coach of the Lakers, has been an absolute, disaster ever since he came in, but not because of him, but because of the way that they have handled the situation with the players surrounding LeBron and AD. When they won in 2020, the next year they changed the entire roster around, and honestly, it made it so that even the players who won the championship with them, who were positive pieces, were not there anymore. I believe that the Lakers, if the LeBron is going to stay and if they're going to keep competing, I believe that they need good role players, veteran role players, and guys who actually play both sides of the ball. Now, is that going to happen? Who knows? Is that going to be a thing that's going to make headlines, or are the Lakers going to make a big trade? Who knows? But if they don't get something quickly and LeBron is still there, then they're not winning anything against Denver. or against Minnesota because Minnesota looks good.